What's up everyone, Kaze no What If is here with What If a Soul was sent into Naruto verse. Before we start, if you like the video, like it, share with your friends, comment, and let's start the video. Rei and she were standing in a side alley near the market, clad in black hooded cloaks, and watched a butcher trying to sell meat. Next to him was a stall with fruits. And on the other side were clothes. The quality was as one would expect from a war-torn country, but at least it didn't rain today. Yes, Konan. Do you think you can help me? Rei asked her patiently. The chibi Konan nodded her head in determination. Do you remember the plan? Another bout of eager nods, and Rei cracked a smile. Then, here we go. He gave her a stack of papers. Konan took it and imbued each piece with her chakra, giving each enough to last the distance between her and the stalls. Nodding at each other, their plan started. Rei focused. His 10 invisible chakra strings stretched towards the stall and connected to various sacks with light things inside. He took a deep breath and signaled Konan to start. Just as the owner of the stall with clothes turned his back on the butcher, Rei made a few good-looking clothes fall into the mud. The clothes merchant quickly twisted his body around and his eyes landed on the now muddy pieces of his wares. They coldly shifted to the only man around. The butcher. This chapter upload first at. As the men loudly shouted at each other, they attracted attention. The fruit stall owner came closer to them, trying to defuse the situation, only for his foot to be yanked back by an invisible string as he was coming towards them. The two bickering merchants suddenly found their faces full of mysteriously floating paper, obscuring their vision. They could only hear a loud crashing noise. It was when they finally got the paper from their faces they found. The butcher's stall was toppled over, a lot of meat in the mud. In the middle of it was a disoriented fruit stall owner, still seeing stars, while the butcher was glaring at him, seeing red and holding his knife. The clothes stall owner was on the other hand frowning at the butcher, his eyes demanding money for the ruined clothes. People gaped at what happened and started to come closer. Rei among them. He quickly used his chakra strings to get pouches with money. He targeted those away from him and used his height to his advantage. It is hard to notice someone in a crowd who barely reaches your waist after all. If someone noticed his pull, he would throw the pouch upwards. The crowd quickly became crazed as the money started spilling from various pouches, and Rei had an easier time pickpocketing. Deciding enough was enough as the people started calming down, he walked towards the alley with a battered-looking sack full of purses. As he was in the alley, Konan sent another flurry of paper into the crowd, straight at their faces. Rei quickly attached chakra strings at unopened sacks of meat and fruit and pulled them to the side alley. He also took 2 bundles of clothes as theirs were already worn out. The crowd was still fighting with the paper storm that mysteriously tried to stay in their faces as the 2 kids were happily hopping home. 11 sacks of rightfully stolen loot floating behind them on Rei's chakra strings. Their first operation netted them nice new clothes. Konan quickly took it to herself to pick the best pieces for her Rei. She didn't even know when she started to think about Rei as hers, but she knew she liked her friend. She didn't want to steal. But there was nothing she wouldn't do for Rei. Rei was kind to her. And she promised to become his, right? Both now sported better clothes. Konan was astonished at the stacks of ryo they acquired. Apparently, Rei focused on merchants more and tried to get their purses. Rei stole 50,000 ryo. That was a lot. The best part was the meat and fruit though. They ate their fill in celebration of success, and Konan finally, for the first time in years, ate until her stomach was full. Not for once did she regret taking Rei's hand. Rei taught her, filled her belly, and patted her head. He hugged her good night too. Konan decided she will train hard and protect Arya. Her time on the streets taught her that only the strong survive. She had her reservations, but she already stole. Only the strongest can abuse and kill the weaker. Konan decided she will make sure she is strong enough to not be the weaker. No matter who, she will kill anyone trying to harm Arya. Slowly, the resolve in the girl and her goals, dreams, and values started shifting. Her mind became set in its path as it approached the mindset of her older counterpart. The counterpart that let a sweet girl like her become an S-rank killer. Unknown to REI, his desire to make the girl into his loyal follower was almost fulfilled. But, not unlike one Hiruzen Sarutobi in the not-so-distant future, he also had no idea that one should not try to manipulate attention-starved children who lived through hell. Not when you are the person who saved them. The results can be unpredictable. REI had no idea that his friend was becoming a tad bit too fanatical. Even if she could hide it well behind her mask of stoicism. In years to come, he will be grateful as well as annoyed at this change. As for Konan, she will always reminisce fondly on this day while serving tea to REI. As this was the day, her heart finally found her life goal. This chapter upload first at REI suddenly shuddered as a cold chill passed through his spine. His head snapped towards Konan only to find her ember eyes stare at him with a minuscule smile. Relaxing, thinking it was just his imagination, he smiled back at her. So, Konan-chan, how much did you steal? He asked her with a playful smirk as the girl went beet red. While REI was in the crowd, stealing, Konan's small slices of paper were floating in the other part of the crowd, getting to a close proximity with the purses and sharing the chakra in them. Imbuing the banknotes with Konan's chakra. She had a lower haul, but she had it nonetheless. I got a little over 10,000 ryo. Konan meekly offered the stash of banknotes to REI. Keep them. REI told her, making her bewildered. I am more interested in this. REI raised an apple with his chakra string. Can you feel the thread? Konan looked at him weirdly but shook her head. And now? REI put more chakra into it. The string was still invisible though. He didn't need her to put the answer into words. Her wide eyes were enough. It never came up because his control was always enough to not put so much chakra into them, but now that he consciously raised the output, Konan could clearly feel it. Her eyes raised between the apple and REI's hand, clearly trying and failing to see something her mind was telling her was there. You are a chakra sensor. REI cut the chakra flow and spotted Konan attentively listening to him. Well, it is not really that surprising. To be able to imbue the paper with your chakra, you would first have to feel it. So, there. REI chuckled. I just never made the connection, you know. Until I saw you maneuver the banknotes through the thick crowd without the need for seeing them, that is. Then and there it hit me. You have this talent too. We will have to refine it, K. Konan nodded enthusiastically. REI knew there was no shinobi around. His second talent, godly nature energy attunement, made him able to feel his surroundings much more. He felt only 2 above civilian levels of chakra in the town. Him and Konan. It was still only the start of the war and barely the first skirmishes started. He had time, but he needed to make Konan into a capable sensor too. Unconsciously, REI started to care for Konan. He slowly started seeing her as more than just a possible loyal follower. Neither of them was aware of it, but they already trusted the other with their lives. Alas, chakra works in mysterious ways when it comes to maturing. After all, the beloved last Uchiha did have hordes of babies craving kids, called fangirls, after the contents of his brooding mini-me every day of the academy. A few months have passed since Ariai's and Conan's first thievery. Since then, they repeated it 3 more times, making sure there is almost a month between them, and also did their best to spend some of their money, so they will be seen in the market buying things. Just in case somebody got suspicious. During these months, Ariai's and Conan's chakra skyrocketed. They now could walk on walls for 50 minutes before their chakra depleted. It was all thanks to the food, especially meat, that their chakra increased. It also helped with their muscles. While they were still kids, their bodies now were more a flat and toned variety rather than skinny and starved. Both of them started running around the nearby forest to increase their speed and also did various exercises. Conan was not much of a physical type, but she did try to run with Ariai. She made it even tougher for herself as she focused on folding 2 papers in her hands as she ran. They were changing shapes from cranes, to various flowers, to shurikens, kunais, and so on. Ariai wasn't much of a physical type either. That much was obvious from the way both him and Conan were huffing and puffing at the end of the day. But he was getting better. They were getting better. Ariai was not really used to exercise in his last world and was a kinda lazy person. He loved just chilling and playing games or reading novels. But right now, he somehow started to get used to this life. Wake up, kiss Conan's cheek, eat, practice with chakra with Conan in his lap, lunch, exercises, dinner, practice with chakra with Conan in his lap, cuddles with Conan, sleep. Rinse and repeat. What astonished him was Conan. She didn't have the mentality of an adult, yet she could keep with him just fine. No, she made a visible effort and actually tried to overtake him. When he asked her why she was trying so hard, he got a well-da stare and was told to protect you. It really ignited his motivation somewhat fiercely. Ariai mostly focused on chakra strings to be able to hurl humans or human-sized boulders with them as if he was using slingers. And while it was quite inaccurate, it was at least something. Ariai also focused more on the stickiness part of tree walking. He could now stick and unstick himself whenever he wanted, either with his hands or soles of his feet. This also helped with attaching the things on the end of his chakra strings and making them stick. Conan was practicing the hardening of her papers and sharpening the edges. It was not really a wind chakra, but it always made Ariai sweat drop. These things she called paper were slowly becoming as dangerous as shurikens. Especially since Conan could make up to 20 of them on the fly by now. Both of them learned how to enhance their bodies with chakra, which made them able to exercise for the entirety of the afternoon. Which in turn made them even stronger physically, increasing their chakra and stamina. They were really pulling each other ahead. All in all, they were no Kakashi or Itachi. But then again, they did not have teachers, technique scrolls, money, nor special food. If there is one thing the villages and clans were good for, it was good learning opportunities. Without knowledge of jutsu creation, chakra theory, or at least some jutsu, Ariai was not about to try creating his own jutsu. Who knows what could go wrong? For the resources they had, they did good. Ariai and Conan were running through the forest when Ariai suddenly stopped. His sensory abilities told him there are 3 ninjas nearby. Thankfully, they did not feel special or strong. While they were a lot stronger than both Conan and Ariai combined, they were heading straight at them, so Ariai stopped Conan with a gesture and they promptly hid in the foliage. They didn't know how to mask their chakra, but they could disperse it. Meaning, Conan imbued 30% of her chakra into 30 papers and made them hide all around into the nearby trees and bushes. They knew this could momentarily fool sensors because Ariai's senses could be fooled too until he focused more in depth. As for Conan, She had no chance of finding out unless she spent minutes in the vicinity. Her chakra's sensing was kinda a work in progress. "What are we going to do?" Conan whispered. "We gotta fight," Rei resignedly told her. "They are heading straight for us." "That's no coincidence. They probably have a chakra sensor. But he should not be a particularly strong sensor." "Surprise attack." Conan nodded. "Surprise attack." And with that Conan pushed 50% of her remaining chakra into 50 small, shuriken-like origami, hardening and sharpening them. From the bushes, they could see 3 IWA shinobi land exactly where Rei and Conan stood when Rei sensed them. They were looking around warily. "Genin Kazuyobo. Where are the shinobi you told us about?" A small annoyed man barked. "I don't know, Kilabi-sensei. But I do sense some dash." That was as far as the sensor Ning got when the man called Kilabi jumped away. Conan's shuriken origami instantly flew straight at the 2 genin. They wanted to jump away too, but Rei quickly stuck a chakra string on each of their feet and pulled, making them fall onto the ground. The paper shurikens shredded the poor men. "Tch, stupid genin." Kilabi snarled as his eyes started drifting all over the trees and bushes. Rei thought he would not find them, but it seems he underestimated experienced shinobi a bit. He barely managed to lift a rock with his string to block a kunao heading at Conan. He saw Conan freeze as she saw the men she killed, and he did not have time for making her snap back to reality. He had to engage the man. Knowing well he did not have any chance without cheating, he gave a kick to Conan and jumped out of the bush. He did not see her blink, take a deep breath, and nod with determination. Conan stayed hidden. "Who are you?" Rei exclaimed, and he pointed at the Kilabi as if the man just offended him. Kilabi's eyebrows raised into his hairline at the sight. "A kid? These 2 idiots died to a fucking kid." He started laughing, but Rei could see the man visibly relaxed. "Well, I am Kilabi, Chinin from IWA. The man who is gonna kill ya kid." The man leisurely twirled kunao on his fingers and stared at Rei as if he was his prey. "Okay." Rei nodded seriously, making the man do a double take. "But Shinobi-san? Could you tell me why?" Rei asked. "Why what, brat?" Kilabi stopped twirling the kunao. "Why are you so fine with your comrade's death?" Rei asked curiously. Kilabi chuckled. "These 2 idiots. I wanted to get rid of them eventually anyway. I enjoy having a female in the team more. If you know what I mean." "Ah. You are just a common pervert." Rei screamed at him, his finger again pointing in accusation on the man. The kid was really making Kilabi mad. The respectable chinin he was, decided to get this over with and gut the kid good. There was an entire village. He could perhaps choose a woman to enjoy there afterward. This shitty war had at least some advantages. He jumped at the kid, seeing his frightened widening eyes. Kilabi's smirk became bigger the closer he got. Rei knew he couldn't evade Kilabi. The chinin was too fast for him. As he saw Kilabi approach, his eyes widened and he did the only thing he could. He flung himself to the ground. This momentarily stopped Kilabi as his kunao didn't stab the kid and instead hit the air. He tsked at the lucky evade and he aimed the kunao downwards, about to skewer the annoying brat. Unfortunately, Rei had him at close range, and his chakra strings that could hurl human-sized boulders, yanked Kilabi forward, towards the bushes where Conan was hiding. The man couldn't avoid the 10 incredibly sharp slices of paper aiming at his throat as he was mid-air. His head was sent flying before he realized what happened. Conan quickly scurried towards Rei before Kilabi's body could even hit the ground. "Are you alright?" She shrieked as she looked all over him. Yes. We were lucky. Rei panted from the fear and killing intent he felt as the Chunin jumped him. He was fast. He stated a matter of fact. Way too fast. Conan nodded and hugged Rei tightly. We gotta get better. Yes, Rei. After they calmed down and enjoyed a few more reassuring warm hugs, they searched the bodies and scavenged a few kunaus, shurikens, money, and storage scrolls. Kilabi even had 2 special papers that could gauge chakra nature. He was probably tasked to give them to the 2 dead genins. After gathering everything of value, Rei and Conan scrambled away. They wouldn't enjoy being attacked by another shinobi. Rei only thanked the god that their village was so out of hand and the chakra sensors. Conan played with the pointy metal. This was the first time she had one in hand and it gave her an example of how sharp and hard her paper should be. She was excitedly waving it around while her other hand held a paper kunau, visibly changing to resemble the normal one. It was a cute sight since she nibbled her lower lip in concentration. Rei chuckled and returned to his own musings. He was sitting above the storage scroll. The scroll was empty and even Conan gawked when Rei just casually hit the trigger to empty it without even seeing a storage scroll previously. He grinned. His godly nature energy attunement talent is giving him sensing ability. For now. He actually can feel Senjutsu Chakra too but never tried to take it in. Too dangerous. Too little chakra in his system to balance it. While yes, he theoretically should have total control over it. But better safe than sorry. But the talent worked wonders. As Rei saw the seal, his third and last talent he picked, worked wonders too. His last talent was godly sealing talent. Rei didn't know what to exactly expect but the second he saw the seal, he somehow instinctively understood how to work with it. He could maybe copy it but not tweak. He did not have the knowledge. But the storage seal provided an enormous amount of discoveries to him. He understood some underlying principles by reading the kanji and how they worked. He was so disappointed too. To explain simply what he found out. Rei did not have knowledge of the inner workings of the seal but he could still read the kanji that made the seal. Space. Withdraw, intent. Store, intent. And some equations alongside it. Correction. Some nonsensical equation alongside it that held it all together and described the parameters of the space. The trigger was obviously chakra and the space holder was the scroll. Rei put 1 and 1 together. He also brainstormed for any possible theory. Rei was not sure but his mind played with a theory. Quite idiotic theory. A theory that said that sealing is basically using a kanji, imbuing it with chakra, and waiting for the magical effect the intent in the chakra provides when it collides with the kanji. He also noticed that 2 of the storage scrolls had a different setup. It was as if they were written by a different. Oh. Rei opened his mouth into a silent oh. I see. They use different sealing languages. It made sense, kinda. Both scrolls were in kanji but the way they were written was different. Meaning a different maker and different language. Where one had space, another had storage and so on. But then, why did they function almost the same? Rei took out a paper and let his instincts lead him. He wrote on the paper while pouring his chakra into the ink. He wrote space. Withdraw, intent. Store, intent, and added parameters. Exactly the same from the first scroll. The catch was, he did it in English. He took a rock and put it on the paper with his English storage seal. He took a distance while pulling Conan with him and with the chakra string activated the storing function. The rock disappeared in a puff of smoke. Phew. So it works that way too? Neat. I just discovered my own sealing language that this world won't be able to decipher. Rei almost jumped from giddiness as Conan looked at him in confusion. In the end, she just shrugged, sat down, and returned to her origami kunao. Rei then used his chakra string to activate the withdrawal function and imagined the rock. Needless to say, it worked. The problem though was the parameters. Rei groaned and promptly face-palmed. Imagine addition and subtraction in kanji. Now, this scroll was a quite standard one and Rei suspected it was a very simple piece of fuinjutsu. So, subtraction and addition didn't even need to be used as it only needed a definition of the created space. But what about spatial fuinjutsu? Containment 1? Barriers? Heck. Baijuyo seals? The shit hits the fan and the seal is as long as an entire fucking scroll. Not to say ineffective as heck since this world was a feudal one. They had some electrical appliances and technology but higher mathematics? Shinobis were glad when they knew the multiplication table. It just wasn't needed for their job. Rei knew the shinobi probably developed the sealing arts in a way that mathematics were not needed, but unless he saw it, he really doubted it would be efficient though. At least these storage scrolls were definitely not. Rei could make one in English and better equations with 1/10 of the space that was needed for the one in kanji. Rei suddenly had a very nasty sinking feeling that Minato Namikaze actually did manage to create a teleportation seal with only addition and subtraction. Moreover in kanji. And suddenly he wanted to puke blood. Rei decided to widen their arsenal. He started to experiment. It didn't take a week for him to create a working exploding tag. If it even can be called that, since one of Conan's small slices of paper was enough to hold it with a lot of free space. The point was, Rei could not create much of them and certainly not powerful enough. His best shot was only half as strong as the single explosion tag he found on Kilavi. That stuff really needed much more knowledge on seals and Rei was tapping into it headfirst without having a book or teacher. It took time. Nevertheless, even if it was only half of the power of the generic shinobi exploding tag, it was enough to cause injuries. With Conan's ability, it was so worth it. To create even one tag capable of hurting somebody would cost him 50% of his chakra reserves. He now had the three idiots who attacked them as comparison, and he understood that while Conan was on the border of very, very low genin, he is a mid-level academy student when it came to reserves. She somehow overtook him while he was busying himself with fuinjutsu. Sigh, at least my control is much better than even Conan's, he thought. So far, he was capable of creating one small storage seal and exploding tag. He then spent the next few days developing a simple stasis seal. All of his experiments, of course, needed Conan, so neither of them made much progress in their own chakra practice, but they both knew this could give them the necessary edge to win their fights. The stasis seal was a very helpful thing, but they had to tweak, retweak, and then completely overhaul it so many times, even Conan was a bit fed up. The point was, if they wanted Conan's paper kunaus to keep their chakra sharpened or chakra hardened state while in the storage seal, they had to put them and the chakra affecting them in stasis until they were released. Otherwise, the chakra would run out in the storage scroll and the paper kunau would just turn into, albeit crumpled, still only a normal paper. They finally succeeded on the 5th day, and a few of Conan's small papers contained a new storage seal tweaked for battle. She could activate it whenever at will, since the activation needed only her chakra and the paper was literally soaked in her chakra. What it needed was only her intent to set off the seal. The seal was a storage one with an inbuilt stasis seal. Inside were contained hardened and sharpened paper shurikens, and the trigger had a feature that gave the projectiles a push, sending them flying in multiple directions when the seal triggered. Fast. The best part was that the speed and the directions were somewhat adjustable on triggering the seal, so it was a really nice surprise weapon. Rei kept some of these papers with the seal because even he could use it. But Konan? She had already 10 stashed away for emergencies and always bugged Rei to create more of them for her. Rei also made quite a lot of exploding tags, as every day before he went to sleep he was able to create 2, almost depleting his chakra. Konan had 7 and he had 3. It was not really a question. Konan could remotely activate them whenever she was, as long as she could feel them with her sensory ability. She was born to be a carrier for seals, damn it. Her paper manipulation is golden when in conjecture with a seal master. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you liked it, subscribe to my channel for more fan fictions like this, and goodbye.